Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Astro Consciousness channel. I'm Millie, and I am here to give you your forecast for the week of January 6th through the 12th. In this channel, we talk about the astrological energy of the week ahead and how you can integrate it into your personal and spiritual growth. Before I begin, Happy New Year! Happy 2025. It is a year that is going to transition us into a brand new chapter of our lives. And I think that 2024 did a really great job at removing a lot of things, a lot of dynamics, a lot of weight that we had been carrying for at least 20 years. And one of the ways that I really invite you to think about any of the things, relationships, uh, parts of self that were left behind with 2024 is that you send them off with a lot of peace, with a lot of love, with a lot of acceptance. And I think that more than anything, with a lot of gratitude for what they showed you, because at the end of the day, anything that we are experiencing in our lives is because it is teaching us something. It is helping our soul unfold and evolve in a way that it chose to when it came into this lifetime as the you that you are at this moment in time. So it is a gift to be in 2025 with the wisdom that we have at this moment in time. And there's something about the week ahead that I think really illuminates that because it's asking us to take action. I'll obviously get into why as I move through the days of the week ahead, but there is an element of this is where I'm going. This is how I'm taking action. I'm deciding. I'm being the authority in my life. Being the authority in my life feels different. It feels a little scary. It feels like I don't know what I'm doing. And I really invite you that if that's what you have been experiencing, and it is some of the things that come up in the week ahead for you, that again, you hold that part of you with a lot of love, with a lot of compassion, because there is an element of a rebirth right now, right? One of the things to keep in mind is that the nodes are at 0 degrees Aries and Libra, depending on the system that you use, whether it's mean or true node. Um, Either way, we are either at that 0 degree of those nodes or very close to it. This is the energetic reset that we are experiencing at this moment. And so, collectively, spiritually, that is happening. And it is a week that starts off with a bang that says, what are you putting in action? Now is the time where your, intentions, because we are a week after last week's new moon in Capricorn, and we are a week away from the full moon in Cancer, right? How are your words matching your actions? How are the things that you said you want to do, how are they going, right? So, without getting into too much right now, let's just get started with the week and see what's in store for us. Monday, January 16th, we start the week off with a bang because we really start the week off with a moon in Aries. Now, that moon in Aries, the first thing that it's going to do when it moves into Aries, and it actually moved into Aries on Sunday, January 5th, is that it created a connection to the North Node in Aries. So that is our emotional processing, right? Meeting the energy of destiny. So even as we start on Sunday, it's kind of like this urge, this surge of perhaps inspiration, perhaps a little bit of a sense of urgency to say, well, I mean, it's technically like a really great first week of January to get started with things, right? And if you think about it from a very practical perspective, people are getting back to work, kids are going back to school, right? We're getting over the whole holiday rush, holiday thing. And so people are really stepping into 2025. But what the moon does on Monday, January 6th, is that it creates a square to the sun in Capricorn. And so here is the moon creating a square to the sun. The masculine and the feminine in us feels a little disoriented or it feels a little at odds. Remember what I mentioned at the beginning of the video? There is this element of, oh, I'm being called to be the leader of my life. And I'm not exactly sure how to do that, right? I think that that's going to look differently for different people depending on what they're experiencing in their life, right? So maybe for some people it's as literal as they used to work somewhere, they used to work for someone for a very long time, and now they're working for themselves. And for any of you out there who have done that, it's quite a shock, right? It's like, oh, you kind of go through a detox period of reminding yourself, I get to do what I want, but I have been under the influence of being told what to do for so long that I don't really know what that looks like, right? If this has to do with couples, and maybe there's been a recent rupture, and not just romantic partnerships, but also, friendships or different types of relationships, the feeling of like, wow, this person is no longer in my life. And these are some of the things that we used to do together, or we used to do life together. And now I'm finding myself with all of this time, with all of this space. And it's like, learning to be in this space with myself without that person, right? Because we have to remember that anything that happens in Aries immediately has to do with something in Libra because the nodes are right there right now. So it's this realization at an emotional level at the very beginning of the week of there is a feeling of like, I'm really doing this myself, right? And not that you can't have support along the way or that you won't, but your support is going to look very differently. And so, no matter how exciting a transition is, a transition is still a transition. And it involves a death before a rebirth. It involves an end before a new beginning. So I'm stressing that because I think that we need to give ourselves some time and space for grief if that's true for you. If not, then, that's not it for you. But if that is true for you, then I really invite you to hold that with a lot of love, um, to hopefully remain excited for the future because it is exciting to start something new this year. I think there's also an excitement in not knowing exactly what to do or how it's going to go, right? Depending on your level of consciousness and if you're seeing things glass half full or glass half empty. And actually neither is wrong. It's just information, right, for you to pay attention to. But this moon in Aries is like, I really want to forge ahead. I really want to move forward. And the square to the sun in Capricorn can be, but I've only done it this other way, and I've only known it this other way, right? We'll get to another day of the week where there's something about that that's actually helpful, but just understand that this is what we're starting with, right? And another thing that happens on Monday, January 6th is that Mercury in Sagittarius squares Neptune in Pisces at 27 degrees. Okay, so when we have a connection between Mercury and Neptune, because Neptune is an outer planet and it really overpowers Mercury at a square, especially, there is a lack of clarity. There can feel like a lack of orientation. I don't know what direction I'm headed in, or maybe I know the direction I'm headed in. I just don't. It's foggy. I can only see one step, right? One step at a time, right? Um, on a more practical interpretation of this, Monday, not a good day to sign contracts, not a good day to agree to anything concrete, to settle any agreements just yet. Anytime Mercury is square Neptune, no matter the signs, not good. There's something we don't know. There's something that we might be experiencing, like, I don't know if that's it. And if it's like a little thing, right, that doesn't leave us alone, pay attention to that. Mercury is going into Capricorn later this week, and that will really bring a more grounded space for you to make agreements and feel much more sure of some of the decisions that you're making. So, does that mean you don't take action? No. I just think that what it means is that you take action in what you know to be true in what you know that you have planned. If you have things on your calendar, by all means, act on those. If you had decided that you were going to start something this week, start it out, right? Um, but the square between the Mercury and Neptune, again, it's similar to the moon square, the sun. This is new. There's a bit of lack of orientation because I've never done this before. And so when we feel that, it is important to not necessarily question it so much or obsess over it, but it is about becoming aware of it and saying, okay, what can I do that is in my control? What can I do that feels familiar, right? So that I don't fall into the space of analysis paralysis and then just become so overwhelmed by anything that might be happening at the time. Okay. Um, Mercury square Neptune is also great energy for intentional introspection, right? Because if it's not intentional introspection, we can also just dissociate. We can just be on our phones for hours and hours and hours on end and not even realize it. So be mindful of how you're using your time, energy, attention. Great energy for meditation, especially if you're having a difficult time kind of focusing and coming back to presence and self. Pay attention to your dreams. Pay attention to the messages your dreams are maybe delivering. Okay. It's a very interesting meeting of energies between Mercury and Neptune. It's very much the human mind with the ethereal. Okay. Also on Monday, January 6th, Mars retrograde finally goes back into Cancer. The degrees that Mars was at the end of October and the very beginning of November. So Mars retrograde in Cancer has been here before. So I invite you to think back to late October, early November. What were you thinking about at the time, talking about at the time, perhaps negotiating at the time? And Mars now retrograde again there is saying, okay, what have you learned from then to now? What information have you accumulated? What are the discussions that you've had? If this has been in agreements with other people, did those agreements and relationships get stronger? Did they rupture, right? Because we have had a few oppositions between Mars and Pluto that can be quite volatile, can be indicators of rupture in connections. So think back on that because with Mars and Cancer now now we have more information as to, okay, this is what I'm moving towards because Mars and Cancer is the energy of what do I really care about, right? It's kind of like mama bear energy, either towards your family, right? Towards a project, towards a job, towards a home, towards this newness, right? And it really is going to bring up, how do I protect what I have now? Because let me tell you, in case you don't remember, um, December was not the easiest month. And I think that it revealed a lot to us that, again, especially in relationships, may have ruptured certain things. And so now, as we move forward, in the year, this is about like, okay, how do I protect what I know is mine? How do I protect what is left from that? Um, there is, I think, a bit of a redefinition in terms of family matters, a redefinition around home base. And this is something that we're going to be working through for quite some time. I want to say at least through half of April, right? Because Mars goes direct in Cancer on February 23rd, but then remains in Cancer till April 17th. And then on April 18th, it moves into Leo. So there's a lot that we're working through here. And remember, March is a month of eclipses. And so Mars in Cancer, Mars still being in Cancer in March plays a massive role in what we're protecting, what we're creating, what feels like home, what feels like family, like the protection of our own inner home. And I feel like for a lot of people, that now looks like this is how I'm protecting my peace. This is how I'm protecting my serenity. This is how I'm protecting my energy, right? If we want to get a little bit more, psychic with it, this is how I'm protecting my psyche from negative energies, from heavy energies. So it's an interesting energy that if we're really paying attention is so, so multi-layered, right? So we are, like I said a few moments ago, revisiting things that perhaps were frustrating us, right? um, at the end of October, beginning of November. So, how are those things maybe perhaps still frustrating you now? Maybe they're not frustrating you anymore now. Um, Again, maybe the frustrating factor has been removed in the month of December. And how does that feel? How do you heal that wound? Because, like I said at the very beginning, transitions and new beginnings are beautiful and exciting, but they still are a process of a death and a rebirth, an end and a beginning. Okay. And so Mars in Cancer is also like the healing of inner wounds. I really invite you to take a look at your natal Mars, see what sign is in, see what house is in, and see how the your physical energy, your desire to work with that energy feels to you in your natal chart. And also, of course, look at your moon sign, what house it's in, and ask yourself, how am I feeling? How am I feeling nurtured? How am I feeling taken care of? How do I feel that I now have to do that for myself in a way that I didn't before? I think that this is going to just come with a lot of new rules in our life, a lot of new boundaries. And that's not necessarily because of the Mars energy, but it's because all of this is happening during Capricorn season. And so when we are in a particular season, we are invited to think about the things that are happening in that season in accordance to the energy of that season. So this is Capricorn energy. How do I take this seriously? How do I take responsibility for myself, for my life? So again, this is just Monday and it's so interesting already. There's not much going on Tuesday, January 7th. So, Wednesday, January 8th, we have the Sun in Capricorn square Chiron in Aries. So, here we have the Sun in Capricorn, which is saying, so you set these intentions. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to build it? How are you moving forward? Who have you spoken to? What is your plan, right? Very Capricornian. Let's get to the point. Let's get started, right? The square to Chiron in Aries is a little bit more of, but I'm a little scared. And am I really the authority in my life? If this period of time happens to coincide for some of you receiving, especially professional opportunities, there can be a little bit of an imposter syndrome there, or this disbelief like, is this real? Did I really get that call, get that email, get that DM? Is this happening? Right? And so understand that, and this isn't just about now, this is at any moment in time. You are exactly where you are meant to be at any given moment in time. It is all happening exactly as it's meant to. It is all happening perfectly in perfect divine timing. And that is especially true right now. So the square between the sun in Capricorn and Chiron in Aries, when we can understand that it is all happening exactly as it's meant to, then we can hopefully create some distance between us and a potential imposter syndrome and begin to observe any limiting belief systems, that imposter syndrome, and say, this is arising because it's ready to be looked at in order to be released. That is a much more productive and very Capricornian way of moving through things. Not because you're bypassing, because I mean, I'm sure that 90 plus percent of you watching this have not been bypassing the last couple of months, right? You have earned your wisdom, especially the last couple of months. So this Sun square Chiron is so much more about initiating and taking action and starting in spite of certain fears and certain perceived limitations. Okay. Um, I think that this has so much to do with having the courage to be the leader and authority in your life. Being the authority in your life starts with you seeing yourself differently, starts with you seeing yourself possible, starts with you taking actions that support a vision or that support who you are. Let's say that this has nothing to do with a resolution or an intention or something that you want to build. Let's say that it has nothing to do with that. Capricorn at its core has so much to do with integrity. And how are your relationships in your life? How is your life aligned with the integrity of who you are at this moment in time? And the square to Chiron can feel like when I honor what's in integrity with my soul, with my life, with who I have become, there's a little bit of a sting because I might have to, not have certain relationships or not be around certain people so much or cut out certain habits that used to feel really good to me in, instant gratification as opposed to long-term gratification. This, I think, also will bring to the forefront how we may not be keeping certain promises to ourselves. And remember, the point isn't to mental lash, punish yourself, beat yourself up. No, it's about observing what's there, being introspective about it, and saying, this is what I'm not doing, but this is what I say I want to do. Capricorn is very much the sign of the zodiac that has to do, you're either going to do it or you're not. There's no in between. And there's no excuses either, right? And I think collectively and energetically, we're kind of there. And so if we're there, this is about perhaps doing things afraid, perhaps doing things before we feel we're fully ready, just to see how we feel in the process. Remember, just to see who we become in the process. And it's so much more about the overcoming of a fear than the action and the outcome itself. Another thing happening on Wednesday, January 8th is that Mercury moves into Capricorn, right? Remember, Mercury was in Sagittarius since November 25th, and it's just leaving Sagittarius now, right? So on January 8th, Mercury moves into Cap. It remains there till January 27th. This is beautiful because this is about cognitive thought, communication, emails, lists, planning, saying, let's get to the point. Let's stop wasting time. Let's check our habits. Is this serving this outcome or not? Is this serving the intentions that I'm setting for myself or not? Right? It is an energy. Mercury in Capricorn is very matter of fact. I don't know if you know anyone with Mercury in Cap. Um, it can be an energy that's very direct. It's very much here's what I see, so here's what it is, right? And every single energy has its gift. And this is an energy that, considering how the week started with a little bit of disorientation, Mercury and Capricorn can be just like, you know what, I'm just going to do the thing that I've been avoiding. Or I'm just going to take the first step already. I'm just going to make the call already. I'm just going to do. Because remember, you either will do it or you won't. This is great energy for planning something that perhaps you want to see unfold, something like a project, right? You want to see unfold over the next couple of months, anywhere from the next 4 to 6 months. Now, as Mercury moves into Capricorn, the first thing that it does is that it creates a square to the nodes at 0 degrees. So the North Node in Aries, 0 degrees, South Node in Libra, 0 degrees. You are literally planning, acting, and speaking towards your future. Remember, The nodes have to do with fated things that we came here to experience. They have to do with karmic things that our soul is leading us to. Mercury in Capricorn is very much the human in us taking action, taking it seriously. Capricorn is the sign of the zodiac that reminds us of the responsibility we have to keep our word to ourselves, right? Being impeccable with our word, right? So as the North Node in Aries creates a square to that Mercury in Capricorn, this is about giving yourself permission, again, to be the authority in your life. Now, this looks differently, right? We're talking about Mercury and Capricorn. What is my self-perception? How do I see myself? Mercury and Capricorn, how am I thinking of myself? Am I thinking of myself as a leader? Am I thinking of myself as someone who can be the CEO of my own company? Am I thinking of myself as the authority, the parental figure in my life, right? And the square to the North Node in Aries is saying, allow yourself to be that. Allow yourself to see yourself as that. On a more practical interpretation of this, Mercury in Capricorn, square the North Node in Aries, lots of truth telling, lots of truth coming out, and being quite unapologetic about it. If you find yourself needing to have those types of conversations this week, be mindful with your words, be kind with your words. One thing about Mercury and Capricorn energy is that it can be so direct and so matter of fact that it can cut through people a little bit. And again, the energy itself is just about it is what it is. But if you're aware of that and you're aware of who you're talking to, be mindful of that. Um, But there's something about Mercury and Capricorn squaring that North Node in Aries that if it does have to do with you speaking your truth in some way, shape, or form, it's about I cannot move through life not being honest with myself and with others about where I stand about certain things, right? Because this has to do with integrity, integrity of word, and how do my words align with my actions in my life and the relationships I have in my life and what that looks like and what that feels like. We do not mess with the nodes. When the nodes are involved, we need to pay attention to the karmic energy that we are creating for ourselves. And if the nodes are now at 0 degrees, this is a reset. Our words are magic, right? Our actions hold weight. Capricorn is the energy that reminds us there are consequences to our actions. There are uh, manifestations of the things that we do in the long run. Now, the square of Mercury and Capricorn to the South Node in Libra can be, I really don't want to do this all myself. I really just want someone else to take care of it. I really just want someone to come in and make it all easy for me, right? I don't know that I should just do this on my own. Maybe I should just go around and ask different people their opinions so that I can form my own. When it comes to communication with others, Mercury in Capricorn, South Node in Libra, I am not expressing my truth because I'm afraid of what they're going to think, what they're going to say, how is this going to make them feel? This reminds me of when Dr. Gabor Mate talks about the pain of authenticity versus the pain of attachment, right? And there is a reel that is, I think, went viral on Instagram where he talks about whether you choose to be authentic or you choose to remain in attachment where something doesn't feel true for you, you're going to experience some pain, right? And this is what this week I think shows us a lot. Would you rather experience the pain of authenticity, which may involve certain dynamics changing? We're talking about the South Node in Libra, or would you continue to feel the pain of attachment at the expense of yourself, of your own truth, of your authenticity, of the integrity with yourself and your soul? It's a beautiful week to take action, but I think we really have to keep in mind the spiritual implications and evolution that is happening this week. Thursday, January 9th. Not much is going on, but we do have the moon in Taurus create a conjunction to Uranus and Taurus. And so when the moon and Uranus come together, we can expect abrupt changes in plans. We can expect some surprising news. We can expect some aha moments within ourselves. Be very mindful of any like implosive feelings that may come up for you. Um, and on a more practical interpretation, be mindful of how much you spend and or consume. Because with the moon in Taurus, we want to do and consume the things that make us feel good, that make us feel yummy. But with Uranus, it's like, well, I'm just going to swipe that credit card and get that thing that will only bring me immediate satisfaction, right? And then we have to deal with the consequences of that immediate satisfaction later on. Remember, we are in Capricorn season. Not much is going on Friday, January 10th, which takes us into the weekend of Saturday, January 11th and Sunday, January 12th. Okay, I think that this is a beautiful weekend because we have Mercury retrograde in Cancer create a trine to Neptune in Pisces at 28 degrees. I invite you to go back to late October, particularly October 28th through the 31st. What was going on at the time? How do you feel about it now? This is where those of you who keep journals, this is where it comes in handy. Check your texts, your emails, your DMs. What were you thinking about, talking about at the time to jog your memory a little bit? But the connection between a Mars in Cancer and Neptune in Pisces is about when I settle into my body, how do I know that I'm being intuitively led to the next step forward? How does that feel in my body? What is the subtle, soft voice that comes through that says, this is the next thing. You are okay. You are held. You are sustained. You are unconditionally loved. You're moving forward in something new and it feels scary, and that's okay. This is very nurturing energy. It's very kind energy. It really, again, I mean, Mars is retrograde, but it really slows that energy of fire down, especially with so much water, and says, how do you come back to yourself, right? When you soften and when you slow down, how do you remember what needs to be healed in order for you to keep moving forward? This is especially true if December was a month of, again, ruptures or newness or the understanding of, oh my God, I'm really doing this. This is a beautiful weekend to really say, okay, I get to be kind to myself. I get to be nervous, afraid, anxious, if that's where I'm at, right? And I hold myself with a lot of love and compassion in that because this is new and big. So it's very caring energy, um, great for introspection, great for being around friends that support you, that support your vision, that care about how you're feeling. So it is such a beautiful week ahead. Um, It is the very first week that starts off with a bang. And I think it can have a lot of feels to it, especially because remember, we're leading up to the full moon in Cancer. And as I've mentioned before in other videos, anytime we experience the week leading up to a full moon, regardless of the full moon, but especially a full moon in Cancer, there's a lot of emotion that comes up. There are a lot of things that come up. But there's something about this week that is asking us not to act in spite of that, but to act along with that. Not to try to outrun how we feel about everything, but to welcome it into the process, but not allow, especially if they're limiting thoughts or limiting feelings, to dictate, right, what you have already decided from your heart. Again, Happy New Year. As always, may this be of service. I am so looking forward to 2025 with all of you. So much love. I will talk to you next week. Take care.